If you're anything like me, you grew up on Agatha Christie's Poirot and Miss Marple, leading to a fascination with murder mysteries and true crime. Today's sponsor, June's Journey, combines that feeling of cozy crime with being a detective, finding clues and solving mysteries one step at a time. June's Journey is free to download, where you search for objects hidden around beautifully designed scenes, and then build your very own 1920s vintage mansion and garden island by choosing the decor, vintage items, and organizing everything yourself. It's relaxing to play, and it's a great way to build in some me time as you clean up and find the truth behind the story. Download June's Journey for free by clicking the link in the description below, or by scanning the QR code on screen now. It's available on Android, iOS, and even on PC, so download and support the channel now. The small farming community of Skidmore, Missouri is no stranger to violent crime. From the infamous shooting of town bully and convicted criminal Rex McElroy, to the horrific slaying of 23-year-old mother-to-be Bobby Jo Stinnett, Skidmore, for a town of 245 people, has seen more than its fair share of cruelty. In 2001, the town came into the spotlight once more when 20-year-old Branson Perry vanished from his home. By all accounts, Branson Kane Perry lived an ordinary life. An only child, his parents Bob and Rebecca divorced just months before he went missing, and Branson lived with his father at his property on 304 West Oak Street. Born in 1981, Branson graduated from Nodaway Holt High School in 1999, but didn't attend university, instead picking up odd jobs to make ends meet. He took work as a roofer and also assisted in the maintenance of a traveling petting zoo. In his spare time, Branson practiced Hapkido, a Korean martial art. In the months before Brandon went missing, he seemed very much himself, at least according to friends and family. However, his father did reveal to investigators that the 20-year-old had suffered some trauma immediately before his disappearance. It took Branson a lot of courage, but he eventually confided in his father that on April 7, 2001, Branson visited their neighbor Jason Bierman at his home. There, he was drugged and sexually assaulted. His father recalled being furious that his son had been taken advantage of. It's unclear if Bierman was ever investigated in the connection with Branson's disappearance, which took place just a few days later. On April 11th, Branson invited a friend, Jenna Crawford, to his home. He had enlisted her help with cleaning the house, as his father Bob had recently been hospitalized and was due to come home in the next few days. Notably, Jenna spotted two men she didn't recognize outside the home when she arrived. She soon discovered that they were fitting a new alternator to Bob's vehicle. The details of Branson's final movements are somewhat hazy. Most reports note that the 20-year-old told Jenna around 3 p.m. that he was going to take a pair of jumper cables outside to a shed next to the house, and then he never returned. His mother, Rebecca Kleino, wrote for the blog Bring Branson Home that Jenna witnessed Branson run into the kitchen, take something out of a cabinet, and run back out of the rear door. When he returned, he wouldn't tell Jenna what he'd been doing and acted like nothing had happened. Shortly afterwards, Jenna went for a shower. When she came back into the kitchen, she found one of the men who'd previously been working on Bob's car, rummaging through the drawers and cabinets. When she asked him what he was searching for, he told her nothing, and then went back outside. The two men working on Bob's vehicle were interviewed by the police, but they did not seem to have been deemed persons of interest. They reportedly told the investigators that they didn't see Branson when he went to the shed, although he would have had to pass them to reach it. The next day, Branson's grandmother, Joanne Stinnett, stopped by the home and found it unlocked. Stranger still, there was nobody there. Concerned, Joanne left, but called the residents later that night, wondering if perhaps her grandson had just gone out for the day. But the phone rang, and her calls went unanswered. She waited a few days before contacting Rebecca, who also hadn't heard from the 20-year-old in several days. Finally, when Bob was released from the hospital on April 17th, Branson was reported missing. Knowing that vital time had passed between the near week that had been since Branson was last seen and when the missing report was filed, the police were quick to begin investigating. Ground search parties were organized, covering a 15-mile radius around his West Oak Street residence, and volunteers came forward to help meticulously comb through fields, farms, ponds, rivers, wells, and abandoned buildings. Even the best efforts of those working the case, though, were fruitless. A search of Branson and Bob's home turned up no sign of the jumper cables, which the 20-year-old had left with that day. But 2 weeks later, they were found just inside the door of the shed. No explanation has ever been found for their sudden reappearance, and to this day, it's just one among many odd details in Branson's case, which makes amateur sleuths scratch their heads. Within 2 months of the investigation opening, over 100 individuals had been interviewed. Jenna Crawford, during her interview, revealed that Branson had been experimenting with marijuana and amphetamines in the weeks leading up to his disappearance. She added that she went home without notifying anybody that Branson had gone, because she thought he'd just headed out for something and then neglected to tell her. She didn't suspect that anything particularly sinister was afoot. Adding to Jenna's information about her friend's drug use, an unidentified family member of Branson's also came forward and told detectives that the 20-year-old had a bottle of Valium in his possession on the day of his disappearance. The investigators decided to thoroughly examine Branson's drug use and began questioning acquaintances he'd met through his experimentation, but none of them had seen him, and they subsequently all passed polygraph tests. Police probed for further connections between Branson and the drug trade and uncovered rumors that he owed money to dealers, but this lead went nowhere. For several years, Branson's case grew cold. Then, on April 10th, 2003, Jack Wayne Rogers was arrested on multiple charges, including child pornography, first-degree assault, practicing medicine without a license, and obscenity charges. The charge for practicing medicine without a license came when Rogers attempted to remove a trans woman's genitals in a makeshift reassignment surgery at a hotel in Columbia, Missouri. During the procedure, the victim had to call emergency services because complications arose. Rogers was a known man to the community, being a 59-year-old Presbyterian minister and a Boy Scout leader who had been found to own an extensive collection of child pornography. He was also an active member of online messaging boards, where he described the graphic torture and assault of several different men, as well as claiming to have cannibalized the genitals of the men that he had castrated. He posted under usernames such as Extreme Body Mods and Oh Hail Satan. Among the many crimes he described on the forums was a first-hand account of him picking up a blonde male hitchhiker who he subsequently raped, tortured, mutilated, and murdered. He claimed to have buried the body in a remote area of the Ozark Mountains in Missouri. Notably, Branson's father, Bob, had suggested initially that his son had gone to stay with some of his friends in Kansas City. He thought that his son was embarrassed and struggling with the encounter with Jason Bierman, and theorized that he may have hitchhiked since he didn't have a car at the time. When news of Rogers' existence reached Branson's family, there was some hope that the police had found the man responsible for the 20-year-old's disappearance. When questioned, however, Rogers denied knowing or seeing Branson, claiming that the post he'd written about torturing a young blonde hitchhiker was just a fantasy that he'd made up, and not based on true events. Yet, when the investigators searched the 59-year-old's home, they found a turtle claw necklace in his vehicle, which closely resembled a necklace which Branson owned. Although Rogers' garden was also searched, nothing of note was discovered. In April 2004, Rogers was sentenced to 17 years for assault, 7 years for illegal surgery, and 30 years for child pornography charges. He was set to serve his sentences consecutively. At his sentencing, Rebecca Kleinow pleaded with Rogers and asked him to reveal the location of Branson's body, but Rogers continued to maintain his innocence. After their encounter, Rebecca began to believe that perhaps the former Boy Scout leader wasn't involved in her son's disappearance after all. She speculated that someone local to the area was involved instead. 5 years later, in June 2009, investigators revealed that they were excavating a site in Quitman, Missouri, after receiving a credible tip that the area was Branson's resting place. A 2-day search was executed, with the excavation site consisting of a 23-foot hole that covered a 20 by 40 foot area. A local farmer residing about 1.5 miles east of Quitman told reporters that authorities had searched for an abandoned well on his property, but nothing had been found. Similarly, nothing was found on the Quitman site. Unfortunately, updates in Branson's case are far and few between from this point onwards. In 2010, Rebecca offered a $20,000 reward for information leading to her son's whereabouts, while America's Most Wanted featured the case on their show. Though this renewed interest in the case, no substantial leads came forward. More recently, however, a New Jersey police officer named Michael Kurz, who had researched the case for 18 years in his free time, and the Nodaway County Sheriff's Office have revealed that they believe the case to be drug-related, though they have not elaborated much further on these statements. Furthermore, in 2022, Branson's aunt, Gail McMurray, told News Press Now that she knew little of his drug use, but said that he admitted to her that he was using them and wished to stop. He was reportedly set to attend rehab just days after he went missing. Both Michael Kurz and the Nodaway County Sheriff's Office have also stated that though they have a strong suspect in the case, they do not have enough evidence to make an arrest and to press charges. Nodaway County Captain Austin Hahn told News Press Now, quote, "You want to make sure you have as much evidence as you can to get probable cause, to make that arrest and to send a good, solid, fully investigated case up to the courts to hopefully get a conviction on that and get some justice in that case." End quote. He added that a body would likely need to be recovered before an arrest could be made, with Michael Kurz noting, quote, "It's difficult to make an arrest for a situation like a homicide without a body or without Branson's remains." End quote. Branson's aunt, Gail, also added, quote, "People don't want to come forward. Their lives are going to be in danger if they know who did it. Someone knows something. I promised his dad and grandparents that I would never give up on finding Branson." End quote. Tragedy has struck Branson's family on multiple occasions. In 2004, 3 years after he went missing, Branson's 23-year-old, heavily pregnant cousin, Bobby Jo Stinnett, was found murdered. Her killer had removed her baby from her body though, and thankfully, the child was later recovered unharmed. The murderer was found, arrested, and convicted. Later that same year, Bob Perry passed away. He never found closure or justice. Then, in 2011, Rebecca Kleinow died after a lengthy battle with melanoma. She was buried next to an empty plot which she'd saved for her son. Branson's empty plot has a headstone where his date of death is listed as April 11th, 2001. And finally, aged 80, Joanne Stinnett, Branson's grandmother, died in 2015. The remainder of Branson's family, including cousins, aunts, and uncles, continue to look for answers, as do the law enforcement, who have pointed out that just because Branson's parents are gone does not mean that the job has come to an end. 20-year-old Branson Perry was last seen on April 11th, 2001 at his home in Skidmore, Missouri. He is described as a 5'9" to 5'10" white male with blonde hair and blue eyes. At the time of his disappearance, he weighed between 140 and 155 pounds and was a thin but strong figure. Branson has a small, faint scar on his upper right cheek, a small scar on his left knee, and he suffers from tachycardia. He was last seen wearing a pair of shorts size 32, a t-shirt in which he wore a size medium-large, and necklaces with arrowhead pendants attached. If Branson is still alive, he will be 43 years old. If you have any information about his disappearance, you can contact the Nodaway County Sheriff's Office at 660-582-0000. 7451.